Hi everyone, special treat for you today. So we've been hard at work over the last week using the Dynavibe and really took a lot of vibration out of the helicopter. I'm pretty excited about it. Carol's had a couple rides, says it's immensely better. Still got some stick shake, so I want to get, now it's about adjusting those blades so they're better in cruise flight. And that's just tweak, 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 go fly, tweak, tweak. So it's going to take some time, but it's much, much better. But the special treat today is, what I decided to do, since we had a couple of requests for this, is I'm actually putting you in the cockpit on this next video. So I'm going to walk everybody through a complete startup checklist, using the checklist, starting up the helicopter, a ground run, checking the ignitions, all the way to a hover, a takeoff, an en route trip to a small airport, and an approach and a landing, and then a shutdown. So for those of you who want to be helicopter pilots, it should be a special treat. And hopefully for those of you that are building Hummingbirds, it'll encourage you to get going a little faster. All right, have fun.
All right, how's everybody doing today? We've had some requests for a startup procedure on the Hummingbird, so I'm going to walk everybody through that one. So pre-flight is complete, walk around, make sure there's no loose items and everything's tight, no leaks. Controls are all free and correct. We want to make certain that happens before we start to engage anything. Okay, and then on the AFS, we actually have a checklist here. So we've got pre-flight is complete. Okay, frictions are set, so they're right here, and I just kind of leave those from the last flight because I know they're right. But the collective is down, and throttle friction is set. We have seat belts on. The doors, I'm going to leave mine open for the start, just a little warm out today. No cutoff is down, that's right here. Parking brake is coming on, so we'll step the brakes, pull the parking brake on. Okay, flight controls, we already did that. Circuit breakers, we only have a couple here for the trim. They are in, and one for the alternator. And the rotor brake is off. Mixture is lean, that's up, okay? And the master and alternator are on. Okay, we're all set. So now we're gonna get ready to start. Mixture's rich, throttle cracked. We're gonna go ahead and open the throttle. What you'll see here when I put the boost pump on, you may not be able to see it. Let me see if I can make these larger. You'll see pressure come up. There's 29, so the boost pump's on. Now we're gonna go to full rich and you'll see some flow. I'll open the throttle and give it quite a bit. Come back to off and boost pump off. And now we're gonna go ahead and start.
Check voltage.
There we go, we're started. Oil pressure is good, so first thing we want to check, we got 79 psi. Oil pressure held, the pump is off. And we'll make sure we got our RPMs down here around 1200, that way we don't get any friction on the clutch. Now what we really need to do is check for any alarms. We've got an alarm. I wanted to show you this. We want to set the fuel, okay? We're showing 50, so I'm going to acknowledge that. And then I'm going to set the fuel or engine, fill main. I make sure I got full tanks now. Okay, and that coincides with the float reading as well of 57 gallons. So that's all working properly. The alternator's online and charging. Volts are good at 14.5. Everything else looks real good here. All the cylinders are coming up on the EGTs. And now what we're going to do is just wait for 200 degrees before we take the engine up and engage the rotor. Alright, we're getting close here now. We're coming up the 190s. We've got our avionics switch on. And before we're going to engage the rotor, we're going to go with strobe lights and nav lights. Unlike an airplane, we want to put the strobes on prior to swinging the propeller. There's nothing actually moving outside the helicopter right now. The engine is all self-contained. Once we start to engage the rotor, and especially with the tail rotor back there, we want to make certain everybody's aware that's what we're doing. Oh, and I've also got the radios preset. Okay, we've got Unicom here, and then what we're going to do is fly over to Peach State. So we've got that already set up. And with the switches I put on the stick, I can just swap comms and swap frequencies without having to take my hands off of everything. In flight, that's not a big deal, but during the hover, you certainly want to have that stuff pre-set up before you lift off. So here we are coming across all of them. We got 204, 199, 204, 209, 175. 5 always takes a while to come up. No big deal on that. It's probably just running a little richer than the others right now. And then our idle RPMs, they're right around 1,000 to 1,100. That looks real good. Alright, so we've got the AFIS, the avionics are on, the EFIS and radios are set. And we're going to warm up to 80 and 200, so you can see what I'll have to do is actually get rid of the checklist here so you can see the rest of everything else. But on the oil temp, we're up to 112, so that's good. I like to see maybe 120, you know, 80 is good for an engine start, or you want to keep your RPMs down. And then around 120 when we go up to the higher RPMs to engage the rotor. And then as the rotor's engaging, what we want to do is watch for transmission oil pressure. Right now that reads 0, and we want somewhere between 10 and 30. I've got this one set, so it normally is around 25 initially, and then once it warms up in flight, it's around 22 or so. So we're just about there. Lean it a little on the ground here. One of the controls we actually don't use much in a helicopter is the mixture. Last thing you want to do is touch the mixture in flight and chance shutting down your engine. There really isn't any mass on that engine back there except a fan. So if you get it too lean and it should start to stumble, there's a good chance it will just quit. And then you're going to find yourself in an auto rotation. What happens when the engine quits is the clutch and the transmission actually disconnect from the rotors, so that the rotor will continue to spin while the engine shuts down. Now, altitude permitting, we could try for an engine restart, but I certainly don't want to be in that position. So we might lean on the ground, but after that it's full rich for everything, all other maneuvers. So here we are coming up on 117, 118, and we're almost, number 5 is at 197, 198. These two guys should get there about the same time. It should be wonderful. There we go. We got 200 across the board. Everything's white. Normally I've got them color-coded yellow here, so that below 200 they're yellow. Here we are at 119. Oh, we'll be at 120 in a second here. So, got to make sure the collective's all the way down, the stick is back in the proper position. We want to make certain the droop stops for the blades aren't chattering. We want to let those blades come up and properly disconnect from the droop stops. So there we are at 120. What you're going to see here now is we're going to come up on RPMs, and it's a centrifugal clutch, so you'll see the rotor begin to engage. You'll probably see it visually out the front first. So here we go. We're just coming right around 1800. 1800, the blade starts to turn. We've got a positive indication on the rotor. We're going to go to full rich now. And you can see the rotor RPMs continuing to increase. We want a nice smooth acceleration. Idea is to get these needles matched, and from there on for the rest of the flight, those needles will stay matched, except for when we do our run up and make certain that we can disconnect from the clutch in case of an auto rotation. So here we go. Coming up. Nice smooth engagement. See, we have transmission pressure now, 24 psi. We're at 2200, everything feels good. The needles are synced. And what we're going to do is just let it warm up here for a couple of minutes. Let all that mass in that transmission come up to a good temperature. We're in the mid 200s now on all of the cylinders. Alright, we're going to go back to a checklist now. So the engine is warming up. We've got the rotor engagement, we've got the transmission oil pressure, and we already verified the strobe lights were on. So now what we're going to do is taxi to where we want to run up. So the parking brake is going to come off. We're just going to come up to about 2,500 rotor RPMs. There's no sense going all the way up to 3,000 and blowing everything. The nice thing about this with a tail rotor is we're going to spin right around here and taxi. It just takes a little bit of forward stick. It taxis fairly nicely. Real nice control here with the anti-torque pedals for steering. And now to slow down, we're just going to bring the stick back a little. Bring the cyclic back and we'll slow down. We could use the brakes, but no sense wearing out the brakes if we don't have to. We can aerodynamically brake. Alright, what we're going to do here is come to a stop again and set the parking brake and run through our ground check. The brakes are set. We're going to run the engine up to 3,000 RPMs and do an ignition check, meaning we're going to check the left and right ignitions just like we do on an airplane. So here we go. We're coming up to 3,000. There we go. 2990, 3,000, 10, 20. We're close enough. We're in there. We're going to check the left ignition and watch for a little drop off. Okay, the left ignition is now running on the magneto. I'm sorry, that's the electronic ignition. Now we're back to both. Let it wind back up to 3,000 where it was, and over to the right ignition. Looks good. We'll come back to both. At 3,000, what I'm going to do is pull the throttle off and split the needles. There we go. There's the engine RPM. We can see the rotors winding down. That assured me is that the clutch actually will disengage. Okay. And the rotor will continue to spin. So now we're going to come back up to 2,500. And let's check everything through the checklist. Engine RPMs, we did the freewheel split. The parking brake is coming off. The landing lights are going on. Trim is set. Okay, fuel pump is coming on. We always want the boost pump on for low-level operation. And then the transponder is set for ground. That will come on with air data to go to altitude. And we're all set to go hover. So I'm going to shut the door. We're going to put a flight plan in here. Okay, activate that. Our altitude is set at 840. We'll get our barrel real quick. That all looks good. Okay, all the engine gauges are green across the board. So now what we'll do is we'll taxi out. Mallard's Hummingbird Helicopter is taxiing midfield for departure runway 7. I like to go out to use the runway. We could pick up right here. To me, it's just a little safer, having a little more room, just in case anything goes wrong. Oh, the intent out here now is we're going to run it up to 3,000 to 30, and then start to come up on collective. So we come up into a hover, and then we'll do a hover check. All right, we're all set. With the throttle, we're going to come up to 3,000 RPMs or so. And now as we lift up with the collective, the RPMs will increase, so we got to stay on top of that. As a correlator, but as we come up with the collective, we're going to find ourselves coming back on the throttle just until it's ready. Here we go. All right, now we're up. RPMs look good. This is what's called a hover check. Okay, so all the engine gauges look good, transmission pressure looks good. And we're going to do a small 360 here just to look for traffic. Not seeing any traffic. Engine time to settle in as well. All the temperatures come up. Alright, now we're going to depart. Hover looks good. Mallard's Hummingbird Helicopter is departing runway 7, Mallard. So basically all we do here is trim a little bit forward and allow the aircraft to accelerate. Okay. We're limited to 28.5 inches of manifold pressure. Okay, there we are. 25 inches is more than enough when we're solo. And we got a good climb speed now. Pressures and temps all look good, airspeed's good. shallow left turn.
That was traffic. Get a radar check.
Say again for mileage traffic.
Just checking a radar check out. Am I reading clear?
No, it sounds alright.
Thank you very much.
Sounds like he's talking through a can.
It's a fabric can.
Altitude.
Alright, before we leave the pattern, we certainly want to check everything. All the temperatures are in range.
Mallard's helicopters departing the pattern for the southwest.
Now we'll fly between 500 and 1,000 feet above the ground, and we'll avoid all the houses. We'll go around them. We are about 700 feet above the ground here. At about 72 knots or so. Pretty day. Alright, just we're going to pause the camera here until we get close to Peach State and get in the traffic pattern. Okay, hopefully we're back here now. Basically we're 3 miles from Peach State, and so it's time for a landing checklist. And basically make sure the lights are on, the fuel pump is on, pressures are good, everything's green, we have no warning lights. I will just pay attention to traffic. And we're going to make a radio call here.
Peach State traffic, Hummingbird Helicopter 2.5 northeast landing, Peach State.
Peach State traffic, Skyhawk 14 now surface on the final for runway 6 midway.
It's a little bumpy out today. So there's Peach State, 12 o'clock, a little less than 2 miles. Get in the camera, there's the pond the other side of the lake. It's a good landmark here. And we're supposed to avoid the flow of fixed wing traffic, so we'll make left traffic for runway 13 at Peach. Landing lights are still on.
Altitude.
Nobody is showing up in the pattern right now at Peach State. And we're going to begin to slow down here.
Peach State traffic, Hummingbird Helicopters at left base for runway 13 Peach State.
Traffic, Skyhawk 14 now surface on the go runway 6 midway.
Peach State, Hummingbird Helicopters turning left base to final 13 Peach State.
Okay, windsock looks good out there, favoring 13. Looks like it's right down 13. Approach speed looks good. We want to stay above 50 till we get below the trees. That's usually about 50 feet, and then we can slow it down. This just gives us the right amount of speed if we should have an engine failure or tail rotor failure. We could still conceivably control everything. Alright, so now we're going to slow down. We'll go over and park.
Two-way traffic, 1 Alpha, turning right crosswind, runway 6, two-way.
There we are. Now once we're down, I'm going to keep everything neutralized. The cyclic is all the way down. And we're going to slow the engine down about 2,200 RPMs here and let things cool off. Lots of good friends here at Peach State, so hopefully we're going to see some here today.
South traffic, Sky 916 Tango is about 7 to the southeast, setting up for the 45 for the right downwind 13.
Alright, here we go. Now what we're going to do is bring the engine down slowly, and you'll watch them both come down and then split. We're going to kill our fuel pump, come back to a little bit of lean, and then below 500 we can use a rotor brake, and we can also kill the engine. Temperatures are all nice and cool. There we are, below 500 RPMs. Below 500 RPMs there, we can apply a rotor brake. And that will bring the rotor to a stop. And then we're going to shut everything down. So thanks for flying with us. Mixture coming lean. Engine's off.
Check oil pressure.
Rotor's almost stopped. We'll get the ignitions. And everything else is coming off.